All right, we're here.
Finally got it. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. I'd like to open the regular meeting of the Springfield Economic Development Agency with roll call, please.
Board Member Van Gordon.
Here.
Board Member Pitts.
Here.
Board Member Moe.
Here.
Board Member Rodley.
Here.
Board Member Stair.
Here.
Chair Woodrow.
Here.
Board Member Pictionary.
I'm here, thank you.
And Board Member Burney.
As we begin our meeting tonight, I would like to ask members of the audience who are joining us by phone or online to please keep yourselves on mute until you are called to provide public testimony. There will be one time designated for public testimony this evening and will be listed as business from the audience. If you are joining us online with a tablet, smartphone, or computer and wish to speak during that time, please use the raise hand feature. When you are called upon, please state your name, ward or general location, and the subject you would like to speak about. To provide public testimony, please use the raised hand feature when the agenda item is called. Neil, if you could put up the agenda, share the agenda on screen. Before we do anything, I would like to entertain a motion to switch out the order of new business 1 and 2 to become 2 and 1. I'd like to entertain a motion to just change the order.
I would make a motion that we switch the order.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any conversation? Then can we have a vote, please?
Yes. Board Member Van Gordon.
Yes.
Board Member Pitts.
Aye.
Board Member Moe.
Yes.
Board Member Rodley.
Yes.
Board Member Stair.
Aye.
Chair Woodrow.
Yes.
Board Member Pictionary.
Aye.
It passes unanimously. So we will. I will turn the meeting over to Courtney.
Chair Woodrow, would you like to go through we have a couple of agenda items first.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yes, go ahead. Next item, please.
No problem. No problem. The next item would be communications, and business from the audience is the first item.
Do you have any?
I don't have any right now. Just a reminder, if you'd like to speak, please use the raise hand feature and we'll get you in the queue for comments under business from the audience. Chair Woodrow, I do not see anyone with a raised hand for this item.
Okay, next item, please.
Next item, we have no correspondence. Do we have any business from staff?
We do have business from staff this evening. I just want to note that staff plan to release this week the submission information that we received as part of the Glenwood RFQ process, which closed on October 15th. So submission materials, which include sensitive financial information, would not be released as that's not part of public documents. But our recommendation is at this time to release the broader materials this week with a press release so that interested parties and media can reach out to staff should they have any questions. We'll speak more specifically to the property and development negotiations in the following meeting, but wanted to flag that for the board here that we'd be releasing it. If there's any questions. Other than that, that's it.
Next item.
Next item, Chair, under new business is a resolution to adopt an amendment to the Downtown Urban Renewal Plan, a resolution number 1, a resolution amending the Downtown Urban Renewal Plan for real property acquisition. Courtney Griesel and Christina Kraz are here for the staff report.
Good evening. This evening, the board is requested to adopt the resolution specifically amending section 700C of the Downtown Urban Renewal Plan. This section specifically addresses how we recognize and incorporate those properties which the board has authorized SEDA to purchase into the Urban Renewal Plan. The plan specifically outlines that it has to be done through an amendment. So the attached resolution is a resolution to amend that plan document, and it identifies a number of SEDA acquired parcels, which are shown in the board briefing memo, but also in Exhibit A to the resolution. I'll note that we would bring a similar item to the board in the future for Glenwood parcels, but this evening is just specific to the downtown urban renewal area. So while this is somewhat of a housekeeping formality, we thought it was also a valuable moment to be able to provide a quick overview of the properties. Each property purchase and their interim and future uses has to be in conformance with the urban renewal plan. So we thought it would be good to walk through them very briefly, which is done in the briefing memo, but we'll touch on it this evening. And I do, if it's helpful, I can bring up briefly that map just as we're walking through it. Let me jump over to it. Get it large enough on the screen that it's useful. So site A is what we oftentimes refer to as 138 Main. It's a mid-block location located fronting Main Street. It was purchased in 2013. This property was purchased as part of a concept for a hard surface plaza project, which would incorporate the entire block. It was an opportunity purchase where the seller was ready to make the sale, and so SEDA stepped in to make that purchase. At this time, it is a vacant building, although there is discussion. We may be interested in doing some minor improvements to do some interim leasing, but eventually it will be prime for a conversation with the board about whether the board wants to move forward with that plaza or might like to seek alternative uses for the development itself. Then as we move further down Main Street, while we call it B through D, really there's two different portions of this purchase. This is property that was recently purchased by SEDA from the Springfield Utility Board, has the old Masonic Lodge in one piece, and then it has what was previously an auto mechanic on the corner of Pioneer and Main. The site in whole was sort of a package purchase, which I know folks remember. Currently, one portion of the building, Site B, is occupied by a business which occupies both the ground floor and upper floor and has made an offer to SEDA to purchase that building so they can be an owner occupier. They're doing some pretty great improvements to the site currently, which are exciting to see. And that portion is not needed for redevelopment. The corner piece has been something under consideration and with a grant to fund redevelopment feasibility assessments with David Lovell and his firm Masaka. That process is ongoing, and outcome from Masaka is not yet known, except that the funds are currently in the budget this year to grant him for feasibility work. And then the third site moves over to Site E, which we oftentimes refer to as the Memorial Building, which was purchased by SEDA strategically to position ourselves for future redevelopment building off of the Blue Mackenzie project across the street, allowing us to also be an interim asset to staging. And so this site will be important for discussion for your next item, but for the interim and long-term uses was aimed at for redevelopment and then also to support the Blue Mackenzie project during construction. So I do want to note that I walk through the history of each of those sites. You're not actually adopting those current and interim or future activities as part of this evening's item. Those are provided primarily just as an update and a touch point. So this evening, SEDA is asked to adopt the amendments to the urban renewal plan reflecting simply the acquisition of the properties. We'll then prepare an item for City Council, which will be a ratification of this amendment, and that'll come at a future date. Christina, is there anything I'm missing in that step?
You covered it really well, but if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I think
I
I
don't
see.
see questions.
I think I see Board Member Steers' hand up.
Okay, yes.
You're muted, Board Member.
You're muted.
Whoops. So we can be fair to the Blue Mackenzie team and to the Masaka team, are we selling these properties, both of these properties, for close to appraised value?
Are you talking about the memorial building or the?
No, the Blue Mackenzie group, I'm talking about Springfield Buick site. And the Masaka group, I'm talking about the hotel that's being contemplated on, I think it's, is it
Sure.
North A?
So
North B?
the Blue Mackenzie site is not one of the sites under this evening's amendment because it's not purchased by the SEDA site. It's actually the memorial building across the street. And so we haven't at this time discussed an intent to sell or how we might do a redevelopment on it. So I think that conversation is yet to be had with the board.
Okay.
On the Masaka, the property that Masaka is interested in on Pioneer and Main, their concept of what they might develop it into has changed and adjusted as their understanding the market changes. And so we are still trying to understand, and they're still looking to do feasibility work to define what their project might be and whether they might be a buyer of the property.
So just to be clear, they've moved away from the idea of a hotel.
Their last presentation of information, which staff brought to the board, was that they were looking more at market rate housing of some type, but it was not, they were in early stages of that concept. One piece I will flag to your theme of market though, and the Urban Renewal Agency does have goals that outline creating taxable value and increasing market health, economic health of the market the Urban Renewal District is in. And so that will mean that any partnership the agency wants to do is really running at creating taxable value and taxable redevelopment.
Thank you.
Steve?
I don't know where to mention this at, but Building A, I was approached 2 weeks ago by somebody who wants to purchase it. So I sent him to Courtney and the city manager. So that's all I know about that.
Yeah, there is definitely interest in purchasing that property, which is why it will be valuable to talk with the board about formally working through that shift away from it being a public plaza, or a determination to continue it and what it might look like strategically. Thank you for making that connection, Counselor.
I don't see any other questions. So I would entertain a motion for the resolution.
I'm looking for it here. I move a resolution amending the downtown urban renewal plan for real property acquisition, resolution number 1.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Call for a vote.
Board Member Van Gordon,
Yes.
Board Member Pitts,
Aye.
Board Member Moe,
Yes.
Board Member Rodley,
Yes.
Board Member Stair,
Aye.
Chair Woodrow,
Yes,
Board Member Pictionary,
Aye.
and Board Member Burney.
6-1 and 6 and in favor and 1 absent. Next item.
Chair, the next item is under new business as well. It's a short-term lease for emergency warming shelter. Neil Adati and Christina Kraz have this item. So good evening. Appreciate your time this evening. Wanted to talk to you about a request we received from the Egan Warming Center. As you know, the Egan Warming Center operates during winter months, cold winter months, which is typically November 15th through March 31st, when temperatures are below 30 degrees. Now, prior to 2018, the Egan Warming site was at Everett Memorial, which is 532 C Street. And the city had little participation in the site location and finding that site, other than just general inspections and volunteer work that the city staff did. We didn't have much to do with that site. However, in November of 2018, following a safety inspection, Egan informed us that a new site was needed, and given the short turnaround, the city stepped in to help find a site, and it was a temporary site at that time. And each year it has been a temporary site, and the city has stepped in when we can to really help find a site when possible. They currently, St. Vincent de Paul currently has an Egan warming site at St. John of the Divine, which is within the urban growth boundary, but outside of city limits. And that holds about 25 people during the winter. On October 15th, we received a letter from St. Vincent de Paul, which is in your packet, asking if there was an opportunity for them to temporarily use the memorial building. They understand that it would be a temporary use. SEDA is being asked this evening to allow sublease with the city to facilitate work with the city to allow St. Vincent de Paul to use that temporarily as an emergency warming shelter. They've used it once in the past as well. So unless, Christina, you have some additional detail that I've missed, that's what we have for you this evening.
The actual action that SEDA is being asked to take is to authorize the city manager to draft and execute a lease to the city to sublease it to St. Vincent de Paul. And that mechanism will help ensure that any operations, maintenance, or security needs that the government might need to put in place in working with St. Vincent de Paul can happen between the city and St. Vincent de Paul, which helps keep SEDA out of the ongoing government operations type work. And that is important to the sort of legal structure with this very short-term use for more of a public service than for economic development. And then it's also intended, the lease would be written so that there was absolutely no extensions beyond 1 year. And that helps to preserve the economic development potential of the property, both in terms of meeting our obligations under the downtown urban renewal plan, as well as making sure that the property looks to potential investors in other places downtown as a future urban renewal project and not like a public services site, indefinitely into the future.
Do we have any idea how many the memorial building will hold on any given night?
Typically, they would have to wait to see what the COVID restrictions might be, but I think it was in the 70s prior to COVID. So
Okay.
probably in the double what St. John the Divine could hold.
Okay.
A lot of it would also have to do with their staffing.
Steve?
I understood that when we had that many people in there before, the businesses down there got pretty upset. And didn't we sort of decide to limit it to a smaller number?
If I may, Chair, I believe when we've had the warming site, the short-term 20 or less uses a year, maybe 25 uses, we did not really get a lot of negative feedback. It was during the pandemic when it was used daily that we started to get some of the negative feedback. This would be going back to that model, which is only when it's below 30 degrees, only between this particular time frame.
I just want to make sure it was brought up.
Thanks, Steve. Any other questions?
You want a motion?
I will entertain a motion.
Okay, there's no number on this motion, so I'm going to read it. I make a motion that we authorize city manager to draft and execute a short-term lease between SEDA and the city of Springfield for 765 A Street for sublease to St. Vincent de Paul of Lane County for emergency warming shelter.
Right here, Joe. Okay, so I moved by Steve, seconded by Joe. The call for a vote.
Board Member Van Gordon.
Yes.
Board Member Pitts.
Aye.
I got to take
Board
this
Member
call. Yes.
Thank you. Board Member Rodley.
Yes.
Board Member Stair.
Aye.
Chair Woodrow.
Yes.
And Board Member Pictionary.
Aye.
Board Member Bernie.
We have 6 ayes and 1 absent. So the motion carries. Next item, please.
That's your full business for the evening.
Okay. Next on the agenda is, or on the platform for the evening, is to go into executive session. So we will need to leave this one and head into the executive session for SEDA. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay,
And-
so I
and
will
please-
see.
Don't we
And
have to
please
wait till
note-
8?
Please note that the executive session cannot start
At 8
before
o'clock.
Right. What time is it? I
It's
lost track.
7:42.
Oh, okay. So in 15 minutes, we'll see you on the other side.